So it finally happened. Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 264 is out, and we just saw the reveal of Yuji performing domain expansion. Ever since Gege Akutami revealed that Jujutsu Kaisen is ending soon, one thing we always wanted to see if it was possible for Yuji to perform domain expansion. And in this chapter, we finally got it.
That's what I'm talking about.
And wow, what a cliffhanger this chapter left us with, because we did not see what's inside of Yuji's domain, or did we? And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in this chapter breakdown. I got a lot of thoughts about it. Like, one thought is you subscribing to the channel with notification bells on and leaving a like on the video, That's just one thought in particular. However, let's break down chapter 264 of Jujutsu Kaisen. So the chapter begins where we left off, seeing Angel using Jacob's ladder, ready to perform it on Sukuna, which a lot of us speculated that if she is successful using maximum output of Jacob's ladder on Sukuna, this could split Sukuna and Megami, but in this chapter it did not happen. Now the reason why it didn't work makes a lot of sense, but I will explain that in a bit. Sukuna does something really cool here. He punches the ground, creates rubble, and he used the rubble to climb up to Jacob's ladder, trying to reach Angel. While the maximum output of this curse technique was active, it really shows that this curse technique in this current state was really weak. We also find out in this chapter, which was explained by Sukuna, that unlike Yuta's in his domain where he can select the technique's target, this Jacob's ladder is not only hitting Sukuna but is hitting Yuji and Todo. Which is why when Yuta performed Jacob's ladder inside of his domain expansion, it only hit Sukuna. And we know this because it was explained in chapter 250. Sukuna explained in this domain the can't miss attack is only focused on me. It's a completely different case when it comes to Angel. Sukuna finally made it behind her and was ready to punch her with Black Flash, also stating that they aren't able to garner the same output as they did before. And right when Sukuna was about to punch her with Black Flash, Todo came in, clutching, saving her life. And even Sukuna had to compliment Todo, stating this man, he is a Jujutsu sorcerer to his very core. Todo was definitely out of commission after this punch, but man, you can't help but to give this man props after taking a punch like that. Now, as I was reading this, I did think that Todo wouldn't be out of commission after this punch, because I did think about when Mahito used Black Flash on him and he was able to tank it by putting all his cursed energy into his stomach. But clearly, getting hit from Mahito using Black Flash versus Sukuna's Black Flash is not the same. But props to Todo, he was a trooper this entire fight for sure. The fight continues on, and we see that in this chapter that Yuji was following Sukuna the entire time as he was going up the Jacob's ladder, despite it burning him. We then see a really cool sequence this chapter where Yuji throws a right hook and then grabs Sukuna by the legs and then completely just started dragging and smashing him down this building, which was really cool to see. I love when we get a display of Yuji's physical powers. One thing I do love in this sequence is the face that Sukuna made in this chapter, like he was shocked as well. As the fight continues, you see that Yuji tries to use the shrine technique against Sukuna to mess up his footing, but it did not work, which Sukuna then punches Yuji, and we see that Sukuna has all of his arms back. Sukuna has his reverse curse technique back, and the reason why he has this back because he used another Black Flash, which we know and seen time and time again in this arc. We've seen Sukuna regain his reverse curse technique after using Black Flash time and time again in this arc. Gege Akutami glaze for Sukuna this arc, I see it.
I can see what they're doing, what he's doing. I can see it, I feel it.
This is very dangerous for Yuji though, because not only Sukuna can use and perform reverse curse technique, but he now has the ability to use the world cutting slash. And having this in his arsenal makes him a bigger threat than he already is. Also, on top of the fact, having all these arms, his hand-to-hand combat is a lot better. Now, I know that people may have problems with this within this chapter, that Sukuna just keeps getting everything back and there's a lot of plot armor going on with him. However, it does make sense to have his arms back because we know that using Black Flash, it will replenish your reverse curse technique. We saw this happen with Gojo in their fight, so I get it. I can admit that Sukuna has gotten a fair ton of plot armor in this arc, but this is not one of them. Sukuna then states that as things stands, all he needs to do is wait for his technique to recover, and that Yuji is no threat to his life whatsoever. But I believe he's trying to hype himself up, because that's not true at all. Because when Yuji touched you, we saw what happened. But I believe that this is just Sukuna's way of saying that once he gets his curse technique, it's a wrap for this kid. Yuji then tries to hit Sukuna again with Dismantle, but then Sukuna dodges out the way. Sukuna explained how lethal that technique is from Yuji if it lands on him or any incarnated type like himself. However, if the attack doesn't land, it's completely meaningless. And what we see happening at this point of the chapter, Yuji cannot land a hit on Sukuna now. Up to this point of the chapter, Yuji has tried everything and Sukuna has the upper hand. If Yuji cannot land a hit on Sukuna at this point, it's just a waiting game for Sukuna to recover his curse technique, then it's game over from that. We then get this flashback of Gojo when he was fighting Jogo. During this time, he was explaining to Yuji how domain expansions work, explaining to him how it's like a buff in a video game using domain expansion and how there is always a guaranteed hit. But a domain expansion is imbued in one's curse technique. The chapter then switches over to Yuji performing domain expansion. And guys, we waited so long for this. Ever since domain expansions were revealed, we were waiting for the day for Yuji to perform domain expansion. And one thing to point out, Yuji is not performing the same domain expansion that Sukuna performed, which is Marvel Shrine. No, this is Yuji's own hand sign. We then jump to the next page of this chapter and they are at a train station, and it states that through the training and soul switching with Kusakabe, Yuji learned the fundamentals of using barrier techniques. However, Sukuna is in Yuji's body at the end of this chapter and he tells Sukuna, let's go. And there is a parallel that I saw at the end of this chapter where Gojo sees Getsu in the afterlife. Now, does this mean that Yuji and Sukuna are in the afterlife? Because this isn't the usual thing that happens when someone performs a domain expansion. It's very odd that Yuji is in this train station with Sukuna after performing domain expansion. Could this train station be a symbolism to the connection between Yuji and Sukuna, which is why we see Sukuna in Yuji's body in this situation? And since Yuji and Sukuna used to share the same body, could Yuji's domain expansion inside the barrier is it connected to the soul? Because we know that a domain expansion is imbued with your own curse technique, so is this some sort of soul domain? Because dealing with souls has been Yuji's trope throughout this entire series, but obviously it's going to be more to the domain because we know that Yuji can now perform dismantle, and dismantle has to be something that's connected to his domain expansion since we know how domain expansions in one's curse technique works and operates. The train station definitely has some strong symbolism between Yuji and Sukuna. We saw it in the opening one, but where exactly is Yuji trying to take Sukuna in this scenario? And now we have to wait till next chapter to see what exactly is happening here. Is the train station actually Yuji's domain expansion inside of it? Is that how it look? Or did we just get trolled off a cliffhanger and inside the barrier, it may not be the train station inside of it. But we did know that one day something like this was going to happen because Gojo did explain in chapter 12 that Yuji will learn Sukuna's curse techniques, and we have seen that display so far, but now Yuji is doing his own thing with his own domain, and I cannot wait to see it. So until then, you guys have an awesome life. Take care of yourselves, stay blessed, and I'm out.